Public appearances continued, statements stayed measured, the whole operation ran like nothing was wrong. But then this meeting happens, called together with what insiders describe as unusual urgency, and suddenly the careful narrative starts showing cracks.
Here are two things that are simultaneously true. King Charles has maintained his public duties throughout his cancer treatment with a consistency that has genuinely impressed people who understand what that schedule demands. He has appeared at state occasions, held audiences, signed legislation, and continued the ceremonial functions of the crown without visible interruption. And at the same time, Prince William has quietly taken on a level of institutional involvement that goes beyond the gradual, almost imperceptible transition that royal history would normally expect. Both of these things are true. They are not contradictory, but together they tell a story that the polished public image of a monarchy carrying on as normal does not fully capture. Today we are going to look at what that story actually is, what Charles has done, and why it matters. Start with what is genuinely remarkable. In February 2024, King Charles was diagnosed with cancer. The type was not specified in the public announcement, but the treatment began almost immediately and has continued into 2025. What followed was not a withdrawal from public life. It was the opposite. Charles continued with state visits. He maintained his weekly audiences with the Prime Minister. He appeared at significant public occasions. He gave speeches. He traveled. For a man undergoing active cancer treatment, the level of sustained public commitment has been, by any honest measure, extraordinary. Part of this is personal. Charles has spoken about his sense of duty in terms that make clear he views the role not as a burden to be managed, but as a responsibility to be fulfilled. Part of it is institutional. A monarch disappearing from view creates its own kind of uncertainty that the palace has consistently sought to avoid. But maintaining that level of output across an extended health challenge carries costs that are not visible in the official photographs. People close to the situation have noted, carefully and without drama, that the question of sustainable pace is one that is being taken seriously internally. Not because anyone doubts the king's determination, precisely because they respect it. William. What has actually changed? Now to William, and to what has visibly shifted. The transition of responsibility from monarch to heir is, under normal circumstances, one of the slowest processes in British public life. It is measured in decades. Patronages accumulate, public profiles develop, ceremonial presence grows. But the actual weight of institutional decision-making, the strategic conversations, the significant internal discussions, that stays with the sovereign until very close to the end. Over the past 18 months, that pattern has accelerated in ways that are observable without requiring any palace source. The Duchy of Cornwall, £1.2 billion in land, property, and investments, came under William's direct control immediately upon becoming Prince of Wales following the king's accession. His management of it has been active rather than nominal. Decisions have been made that carry strategic weight. The extension of royal warrant authority to William and Catherine, announced publicly in 2025, gave them the ability to formally endorse brands and institutions on behalf of the crown. That is a privilege that monarchs have historically guarded carefully. Extending it is a signal about where the symbolic weight of the institution is being deliberately positioned. The Councillors of State designation was updated, formally bringing Anne and Edward into the constitutional cover that had been left incomplete by Harry and Andrew's departures. Each of these moves is documentable. Each represents a genuine structural shift in how responsibility is distributed within the institution, and collectively, they describe a transition that is moving faster than the ceremonial image of steady continuity suggests. The human dimension, what gets missed? There is a human dimension to this story that the institutional narrative tends to flatten. William has lived through loss under public scrutiny before. He was 15 when his mother died. He walked behind her coffin through the streets of London in front of the world. He has spent his adult life working through the intersection of private grief and public responsibility in ways that most people cannot fully imagine. That experience shaped him in specific ways. A caution about media, a fierce protectiveness of his own children, a particular kind of emotional discipline that comes from having had to perform composure at moments of genuine devastation. Now he is navigating something different, not sudden loss, but prolonged uncertainty. His father is present, is working, is determined, and William is simultaneously a concerned son and the heir who must prepare for every possibility. Those two positions do not always sit easily together. Being ready for a future you hope does not arrive too soon requires a kind of emotional compartmentalization that is, by any honest account, genuinely difficult. The composed public face, the one royal watchers noted looking heavier at certain points over the past year, is not performed indifference. It is the face of someone carrying the weight of both dimensions at once. What the institution is actually doing. The monarchy's philosophy, built across centuries, is preparation rather than reaction. Plans for every significant transition have existed in various forms for decades. These are not morbid exercises. They are standard institutional practice for an organization whose continuity is considered constitutionally essential. What sources close to the palace indicate, without dramatic detail, is that those plans are being reviewed with more active attention than they typically receive. Not because any specific outcome is anticipated, because the situation has moved beyond the early phase of managing a health challenge into a sustained period of navigating its ongoing reality. The distinction matters. In the early months of the king's diagnosis, the operational question was how to manage his schedule while treatment began. The answer was maintain the pace, project stability, communicate confidence. Now, with treatment continuing into 2025 and the king's determination to maintain his schedule as unchanged as possible, the question has evolved. It is less about managing the immediate present and more about ensuring the institution is structurally prepared for any direction the situation takes. The Councillors of State update, the duchy management, the royal warrant extension, the Princess Royal's formal elevation. These are not random developments. They form a coherent picture of an institution that is quietly but systematically ensuring that its operational foundations do not rest on any single person's continued capacity. That is not alarming. It is responsible. It is exactly what a well-run institution should do. But it does mean that the image of steady, uninterrupted continuity is somewhat simpler than the operational reality. Charles and the grandchildren, the private center. There is one dimension of this moment that tends to get lost in the institutional analysis. Reports consistently indicate that Charles finds particular sustenance in time with his grandchildren. The private moments, away from the schedule, the cameras, the constitutional significance, where he is simply a grandfather. For a man who has spent his entire adult life preparing for a role defined by duty and tradition, there is something quietly significant about that. The institution he represents and will eventually pass on is, at its most human level, a family. And in his most challenging period, it is the family connection that matters most. William and Catherine have been, by all accounts, determined to protect their children from the weight of this period. Not to shelter them from reality, but to ensure that the uncertainty surrounding their grandfather does not define their daily experience. School runs continue, routines are maintained, the ordinary rhythm of childhood is guarded. That is not denial, it is a specific kind of wisdom about what children need when the adults around them are navigating something difficult. And it says something about what kind of people William and Catherine are. That even as the institutional demands on them increase, the parental commitment does not waver. What this moment actually is. Step back and look at the full picture. A king who waited longer than any heir in modern history to step into his role, finally serving it with genuine dedication, navigating a health challenge with more public honesty than any previous British monarch would have considered appropriate. An heir who is preparing for responsibilities he hopes will arrive on a distant natural timeline, but who understands his duty to be ready whenever that timeline demands it. An institution that is, quietly and without fanfare, ensuring its structural foundations are solid regardless of what comes next. And a family doing all of this while also being simply a family. With grandchildren, with school runs, with the ordinary human texture of love and concern and the particular sadness of watching someone you love face something difficult. This is not a crisis story, it is not a succession drama. It is the British monarchy doing what it has done for centuries, adapting, preparing, carrying on, and doing it with more human honesty than it has perhaps ever shown before. Whether that honesty becomes a genuine strength for the institution going forward is one of the more interesting questions of this reign. Two things are simultaneously true. Charles is showing up, fully, determinedly, with the sense of duty that has defined every chapter of his public life. And William is preparing, actively, structurally, with the quiet weight of someone who understands what that preparation means. Neither of those truths diminishes the other. Together, they describe a monarchy in genuine transition. Not dramatic, not destabilizing, but real. Drop your thoughts below. I always want to know how you see this moment. Like the video if it gave you the fuller picture. Subscribe to stay with the story. Take care. See you very soon.